It's important that as medical students and junior doctors, you begin to develop a sound knowledge of the basics of sutures. This includes the different shapes and types of needle, as well as the different suture materials that are available. By doing this, it will allow you to make safe decisions regarding when each of the different suture and needle combinations can be used appropriately, and also ensure that you choose the right type of suture for the task at hand. Suture needles can be of varying shapes and sizes. Here we can see a large needle that is attached to a thick 1/0 suture, and for comparison, a relatively tiny needle that's attached to a 5/0 suture thread. As you'd expect, typically, the thicker the suture thread, the larger the needle, and vice versa. But if you want to check the size of the needle, it's displayed upon the packaging, as you can see here. So the needle inside here is 48 mm in length, whereas this needle is 26 mm. In terms of the shapes of needles, there are key ones that you need to be aware of. They may be straight, 3/8 the circumference of a circle, half the circumference of a circle, or J-shaped. Their different shapes dictate their different uses. Straight needles have traditionally always been used to perform subcuticular closing of the skin. However, due to the risk of needle stick injuries, these are rarely used now. 3/8 needles may also be used for subcuticular suturing, but also to suture fascia, muscle, and blood vessels. Half circumference needles are most commonly used when suturing the gastrointestinal or urogenital tract. J-shaped needles tend to be used when suturing deep, in confined spaces. For example, when closing laparotomy port sites, or when suturing per vagina or per rectum. Suture needles also vary in terms of their cross-sectional shape. They may have a round body or a triangular-shaped body, which we refer to as cutting or reverse cutting, depending on the orientation of the triangle's apex. Cutting needles describe when the sharp edge or the apex of the triangle lies along the inner aspect of the needle. This sharp edge allows the needle to cut through tough tissue, and thus they're typically used to suture tissues such as skin, fascia, ligament, or tendon. Reverse cutting needles are also used to suture tough tissues such as skin, fascia, and tendon. However, the apex of the cutting triangular shape lies upon the outer curve. This means that these needles only cut the tissue along this outer aspect. With round body needles, the shaft of the needle is circular and smooth, with no sharp cutting surface. These types of needles are designed to part tissue fibers and not cut them. So once the needle has passed through the tissue seals around the suture and prevents any leakage. Because of this lack of cutting, round body needles are used to suture softer tissues, such as bowel and blood vessels. We can identify whether a needle is round-bodied or cutting from the symbols displayed on its packaging. For round body needles, they will have a white circle with a small black circle inside. Cutting needles are indicated by a black triangular symbol, with the apex pointing towards the 12 o'clock position. Whereas reverse cutting needles have a black triangle with its apex pointing towards the 6 o'clock position. Another type of needle that we need to be aware of are blunt needles. These, as the name suggests, have a blunted tip, which significantly reduces the risk of sustaining needle stick injuries. Blunt tip needles are used to suture softer tissue, for example the fascia, when closing a laparotomy. No one type of suture is suitable for all purposes, so it's important that we have a sound knowledge of the different types and when it's best to use each of them.